Suspects, including a Frio County judge and two Pearsall City Council members, are facing charges of vote harvesting and tampering with evidence.
The handcuffs clicked shut on 15 Democratic officials who thought they were above the law, including a sitting judge, who never imagined he'd be the one wearing orange instead of black robes. This massive mail-in voter fraud scandal didn't just steal an election. It shattered the trust of an entire community and exposed how easily predators in power can turn democracy into their personal ATM machine. When you see the evidence we're about to reveal, you'll understand why your vote might not be as safe as you think it is. So hit that subscribe button right now, because every patriot needs to see what happens when corruption reaches the highest levels of government and nobody is watching. The federal investigation that started it all. What most people don't know is how federal investigators first discovered this massive conspiracy. It wasn't through whistleblowers or anonymous tips. It was because of a single clerical error that exposed everything. In March 2024, a mail carrier in Frio County noticed something unusual. 17 absentee ballots from Pine Hills Estate were all addressed in identical handwriting, despite supposedly coming from different residents. Instead of ignoring this red flag, postal worker Maria Gonzalez documented the irregularity and reported it to postal inspectors. That single report triggered a federal investigation involving the FBI, Texas Rangers, and the Attorney General's office. Within 6 weeks, investigators had identified a pattern of fraudulent activity spanning 3 election cycles. Bank records revealed the conspiracy had been operating since 2020. Generating over $67,000 in illegal payments to operatives. The scale was staggering. They had manipulated elections for county judge, mayor, city council, school board, and even utility district positions. But the most shocking discovery wasn't the money or the scope. It was how they recruited their army of accomplices.
What is vote harvesting?
Vote harvesting is the idea that what will happen is that you'll collect completed absentee ballots from voters and you deliver them to polling places or election offices in time for the election.
Is that legal to do in Texas?
It is, and with
the recruitment network inside City Hall. Internal emails obtained through public records requests reveal how the conspiracy spread through local government like a virus. It started with County Judge Elena Rodriguez, who used her position to identify vulnerable election processes and recruit trusted allies. She began with her own staff members, offering them $500 per election to assist with voter outreach programs. These employees then recruited family members and friends, creating a pyramid structure that eventually included janitors, clerks, and even security guards from various government buildings. The beauty of their system was compartmentalization. Most participants only knew about their specific role, never understanding the full scope of the operation. Phone records show Judge Rodriguez made 134 calls to different government offices during business hours, coordinating activities under the guise of official county business. She used her access to voter registration databases to identify nursing homes with high concentrations of elderly residents who rarely voted. Meeting minutes from closed-door county commission sessions, obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, show coded language discussing community engagement initiatives and senior citizen voting assistance programs. But their biggest mistake was getting too comfortable with success, which led to increasingly bold and reckless behavior. The banking records that exposed the money trail. Federal investigators uncovered a sophisticated financial network that laundered election fraud payments through 17 different bank accounts across 4 states. The conspiracy used shell companies with names like Community Outreach Services and Senior Assistance Programs to legitimize their payments to operatives. Wire transfer records show over $94,000 moved through these accounts during the 18 months leading up to the election. They established checking accounts in the names of deceased relatives to avoid detection, with one account belonging to a woman who had died in 2019, still processing payments as recently as October 2024. Credit card statements reveal they purchased prepaid debit cards in bulk, distributing them to operatives as untraceable payment methods. The most damning evidence comes from automated bank alerts. The accounts were flagged by financial institutions' fraud detection systems over 43 times. But the alerts were ignored because the amounts stayed just below federal reporting thresholds. Cryptocurrency transactions totaling $12,000 were also discovered, showing they attempted to modernize their money laundering operations.
How hard is it to prove that vote harvesting is happening?
It's kind of a he said.
The Ballot Harvesting Training Program. Documents seized from defendants' homes reveal they operated a formal training program for ballot harvesting operatives, complete with instruction manuals and practice scenarios. The 23-page training guide, titled Community Voting Assistance Protocol, contained scripts for approaching elderly residents, techniques for gaining access to nursing facilities, and methods for avoiding detection by staff members. New recruits were required to attend 3-hour training sessions held in the basement of a local community center, where they practiced forging signatures and learned how to coach confused residents through ballot completion. Role-playing exercises included scenarios like handling family interference and dealing with suspicious staff members. The training materials even contained psychological manipulation techniques, teaching operatives how to identify residents with cognitive vulnerabilities and exploit their desire to be helpful. Video recordings from these training sessions, recovered from a defendant's laptop, show instructors demonstrating how to position their bodies to block security cameras while assisting with ballots. The program graduated 68 operatives over 2 years, with each required to sign confidentiality agreements that threatened legal action for exposing the operation. The technology infrastructure behind the fraud. The conspiracy relied on sophisticated technology to coordinate their activities and avoid detection by law enforcement. They developed a custom mobile app, disguised as a senior services coordinator, that allowed operatives to report their daily collection numbers, upload photos of completed ballots, and receive real-time instructions from supervisors. The app used encrypted messaging and automatically deleted conversations after 72 hours to prevent evidence preservation. GPS tracking within the app created detailed maps of operative movements, ensuring efficient coverage of target facilities while avoiding suspicious patterns. They purchased burner phones in bulk using false identities, rotating devices every 30 days to prevent law enforcement tracking. Social media monitoring software was employed to track local news coverage and gauge public sentiment about their activities. The technical sophistication extended to their document production. They used professional-grade printers and specialty paper to create fake voter registration forms and absentee ballot applications that were nearly indistinguishable from authentic documents.
Here are 6 people facing felony charges in a voting investigation that's led by the Attorney General's office. Among those suspects, Frio County's judge, council members, and a school.
The Interstate Coordination Network. Federal investigators discovered this wasn't an isolated operation. The Frio County conspiracy was connected to similar schemes in Louisiana, New Mexico, and Colorado through a network of shared resources and personnel. Phone records reveal over 300 calls between Texas defendants and individuals in these other states, discussing best practices and operational improvements. Money transfer records show the Texas operation received initial funding of $18,000 from a Louisiana-based group that had been running ballot harvesting schemes since 2018. Personnel were sometimes shared between states during major elections. 2 operatives from the Colorado network were flown to Texas, specifically for the 2024 primary elections, with their travel expenses paid through the same shell companies used for other fraud activities. The interstate network used a sophisticated communication system involving encrypted email servers based in Eastern Europe, making their conversations nearly impossible for domestic law enforcement to monitor. Training materials and operational guides were shared between groups, creating standardized methods for ballot harvesting across multiple jurisdictions. The most shocking revelation was a discovered planning document for expanding operations into 6 additional states, for the 2026 midterm elections, with specific targets including Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. The medical records exploitation scheme. Through accomplices working in healthcare facilities, the conspiracy gained illegal access to medical records to identify the most vulnerable targets for ballot manipulation. They specifically sought residents diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, or other cognitive impairments who would be unlikely to remember their voting activities. Internal communications show they maintained a database of over 400 elderly residents across 12 facilities, ranking them by their cooperation probability based on their medical conditions. Accomplices in medical facilities provided weekly updates on residents' mental states, family visit schedules, and medication changes that might affect their cognitive awareness. The scheme included bribing 3 nurse aides with monthly payments of $800 each to provide access to restricted areas of nursing facilities, and to distract other staff members during ballot collection visits. Medical appointment schedules were obtained to ensure operatives visited residents when they would be most alert and responsive to manipulation.
Here today is what we feel is a calculated campaign of intimidation.
A challenge to felony charges.
This is not law enforcement. This is voter suppression in the guise of protecting our voting integrity.
The League of United Latin American Citizens, or LULAC, is throwing their support behind several Frio County elected officials facing charges of vote harvesting.
I think there are better things and maybe better ways to use their resources than to be picking on people in a very small town that I believe are just doing their civic duty and trying to get people to vote, trying to get the vote out.
In today's climate, an accusation is almost like a conviction. And that's the sad part. The harm has been done, the damage has been done, careers and lives have been destroyed. That is the trust that is being.
The local media manipulation campaign. The conspiracy included a sophisticated effort to control local media coverage and suppress investigative reporting about their activities. They provided regular advertising revenue to 3 local newspapers through shell companies, creating financial dependence that discouraged critical coverage of their political activities. When a local reporter began investigating irregularities at Pine Hills Estate, the group coordinated an intimidation campaign involving anonymous phone calls, social media harassment, and threats of legal action. They planted favorable stories in community newsletters and church bulletins, portraying their activities as legitimate voter assistance programs serving underrepresented communities. Social media manipulation included creating dozens of fake Facebook and Instagram accounts to promote their candidates and attack their political opponents with coordinated messaging campaigns. The group paid a local radio station owner $12,000 to avoid covering the federal investigation, with the understanding that negative coverage would result in lost advertising revenue from their business network. They even attempted to place their own supporters in positions at local media outlets, with evidence showing they influenced the hiring of a sympathetic editor at the county's largest newspaper. Every elderly person in this story could be your parent, your grandparent, someone you love sitting alone in a facility right now. While politicians debate election integrity in Washington, real criminals are walking into nursing homes across America, stealing votes from people who fought in wars to protect the very democracy being ripped away from them. If you won't stand up for these forgotten heroes who can no longer defend themselves, who will? Hit that subscribe button right now. Not for me, but for every vulnerable senior citizen whose voice is being silenced by predators in suits. Because your subscription might be the only thing standing between democracy and the criminals who want to destroy it one nursing home at a time.